Welcome to Between Over and Next with your hosts, Holli and Robert, a happily married couple who explore the space between what was, what is, and what's to come. From career changes to navigating life's uncertainties, this dynamic duo will empower you to live your happiest life at every age and stage. So, get ready because your journey with Holli and Robert starts now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Between Over and Next. Hi, Holli.
Hi, Robert. Today, we are celebrating our age. I am 61 years young, and you are?
62 years young.
And we have experienced 6 decades of living life. I am
Very proud of.
so grateful to be 61 years young, happy, healthy, and that is really our podcast mission, is to inspire you to live your happiest, most fulfilled life at every age and stage. And these 6 decades have been, well, how would you fill in the blank there? These 6 fleeting. So when you say the word fleeting, what comes to mind for me is that there was so much more behind us.
So, which tells you one thing. You should enjoy your time with your family and friends while you have that time.
Actually, we also say this, to be present and be in the moment.
Right.
So to embrace that.
And not just those milestone moments, but all the moments, the regular moments, more importantly than the big moments.
Not only the realization of the actual number, which I always say age is just a number, because it really is, but how you feel mentally and physically and spiritually, that all does matter. Your mindset matters. But a lot of this is also when we focus on the realization of where we are in life as a happily married couple experiencing life together through marriage, through parenthood of children. One just crossed the thresholds. Lindsay became 30, and Alex is 27 and a half in his late 20s. And in episode 4, we did discuss the decade of the 20s. But looking at our children and how they are approaching their lives individually and collectively as a family. But then with the blessing that we have that all 4 of our parents are with us as we are recording this podcast, as, you know, this moment in time, we have 4 parents that are still with us,
Right.
Robert.
And
we're watching them.
Right.
We're watching them age.
And what always happens is when we share that fact with friends and people who we interact with, everyone is like,
Wow. What a blessing.
That's right.
That is so fantastic.
Because we do have so many friends who've lost their parents, some who have lost them at a very young age, and it's all too soon. We don't really take that for granted, and we do note that.
If we think about our own reality of being children, it's also a matter of how old were you when you knew your grandparents, and how long were your grandparents around? I mean, our children are so lucky to have the 4 grandparents to learn more about them.
Well, we had 2 grandparents at our wedding, and we were 29 and 30.
Right, so you had your
My
father's
grandfather,
father,
my
your
grandpa
grandfather, and
David.
I had my father's mother.
Right. And my grandfather at our wedding, I believe, was 92.
And Lindsay and Elliot had
6.
6 grandparents walk down their aisle.
Mhm.
It's pretty awesome.
We had 6 grandparents here just last week celebrating Lindsay's
30th.
birthday.
So this episode is for you. I believe it's for everybody, for parents, for children,
If you've ever had a birthday.
for anybody, right? Well, it's anyone who really cares about ongoing personal development, anyone who wants to have some self-improvement, because you're going to learn a few things while we are sharing our story. And if you also care about those life experiences as you age, you may be going through similar life stages. or seeking insights about aging, and especially about navigating life transitions and changes.
Yep.
There's lots of changes that happen along the way. There's a lot of joy, but there's also a lot of challenges. And you have to embrace those challenges and the changes and the experiences.
And you should expect those challenges. I think quite often as parents, you don't let your children experience enough of those challenges earlier on in life. Like, we tend to protect our kids from things, but we know that more now, that wisdom to impart even on our children. I don't think it's ever too early to have key information, right? We talk about foresight. This information gives foresight to people, right? A look into, if they're open to learning that. A lot of people kind of insulate themselves and say, I'm in my 20s. Why would I even think about what it might be like in my 50s or 60s?
I really want to focus on the adulthood, because that's when you really start recognizing the things that matter most. And something that's always mattered most to us are relationships and family. Our relationship with each other, because our 32-year marriage, there has been a lot of communication and compromise. And I think that is the strength.
I have compromised incredibly in this relationship.
Share some insights into how our relationship has grown and changed over the years.
What used to be dark hair in the sink drain, now it's gray hair in the sink drain. But, beyond the physical.
Should we have a laugh track at that?
I do have one of the buttons here. Does have a laugh track.
I hear you laughing out there.
Beyond the physical, obvious, right? You look in the mirror, you see your parents, and like, oh my God.
But wait a second. So many people tell me you look the same, you look the same, you look the same.
Oh, I get that a lot. A couple of people commented recently, like, you haven't changed. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think that's why when you're looking at somebody, it depends on when you've met that person or how long you've known that person. And when you really look into someone's eyes.
Right. The eyes don't change.
Right. And I think that's really the connector. But when it comes to us, with our marriage,
mine are a little bit more blurry than they used to be.
Okay. Well, that's again physical. I think that looking at our own physical health over the years, and also looking at our parents' physical health now, those are things I think we're much more aware of than ever before. When you are in your 60s, you really before then are not thinking about that too much. But 60 to 80, you realize you got to keep on moving.
You do. Just recently, again, tied in with Lindsay's birthday, when we were reminiscing through some video footage of that we prepared for her first birthday, and then footage that was shot. So at her first birthday, we were each 30. But more importantly, our parents were in their 50s.
Yep.
Right? So about 10 years younger than we are right at this moment. In context, if we look at that video, at that moment, they're younger than us. And it's just interesting because for most of our lives, we were always thinking about our parents as older than us. But here they are in living color on the screen from 30 years ago. And they are younger than us at this point. You start to think about your mortality, right? Time seems to move so much faster.
When you get older.
That it seems to be moving fast, but time hasn't changed. It still takes the same amount of time.
That's a perspective, actually,
right,
on
of
aging.
Course, of course.
Because
you want to slow it down now.
Right.
Now that we're in our 60s,
right.
Like, whoa.
Right.
Whoa, let's not so fast here.
Robert and I met when we were 28 and 29 years old. Who are Holli and Robert? How do we see the world?
Being positive, having a good attitude, optimistic, resilient. Certainly, I think without a doubt, that's at the top of who we are. We're a resilient team, a resilient couple.
Right now, as we're sandwiched in between our parents and our children, we are realizing more things than ever at this moment in time than ever before. We are very forgiving. I think we're more understanding and compassionate.
Well, I think a lot of that is because of who we are and because of how we grew up. I think about, as a young person, my overwhelming desire, and we discussed this, I think, in our last episode or 2 episodes ago with David Noonan, about jobs. I couldn't wait to get working papers to go out and start working and getting a job.
We both went from employee to entrepreneurship, right? Which is a lot of the stories that you're hearing on Between Over and Next. And honestly, we figured it out a lot sooner than a lot of other people did.
Your journey into entrepreneurship was thrust upon you. You were presented with that opportunity with Marcy, and that was very much out of where you really came from in your career path in retail and fashion and all of that. And I think it was the right choice for you to make that leap and to work with her. And you were lucky that you had the love and support of your parents at that point. Timing is everything, right?
I always want this to be of high value to our listeners and viewers. And I want you to think about your experiences on your journey thus far, no matter where you are, no matter what age number you are. So in the 20s, which is all about beginnings, the early years, and a lot of it is about finding yourself. In your 20s, you really do have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in yourself in every decade, but you need to invest in yourself, which means using the time, and time is an important factor in this episode and in our every day-to-day lives, right? To explore your interests and develop new skills and always investing in your personal and professional growth, whether it be through learning, through travel, through self-discovery. The more you invest in yourself in your 20s, without a doubt, the greater return in the future.
And it's the time to take some chances.
Step out of your comfort zone.
I took a pretty big leap in my 20s, career-wise. And listen, I could say this because my parents don't listen regularly. I do believe that my parents, still to this day, think I should have followed more in the path of what my father did than what I decided to do creatively, where after 3 years, I was in my late 20s, right? 25 to about 28 years old, to be in a corporate job that my father assisted or guided me to, was able to secure me an interview with some people he knew, and I did the rest. But here it was 3.5 or 4 years later saying, I'm done with this. I want to pursue my passion. I still think to this day, they say, you're crazy. You should have never done that.
Bravo to you, but unless you
But timing was important. I could have never done that at any other point. Had I, been married with a child. But in order to convince myself it was easier then, because I didn't have any other responsibilities. And that's why I was so passionate at that point and felt so good about doing it, because the downside risk was so minimal. As you get older and you have more responsibility, you take risks, but they're a little bit more calculated, right? You approach it a little bit differently because there's more at stake. So you want to make those moves and those changes and those pivots. But there are certain pivots and changes that you make that are far more critical.
There are certain things that you're setting a foundation for in your 20s. So not only is it about your own personal growth, it's also, like you said, it may be a time to take risks, but I think that opportunity awaits. So risk could happen at any given time.
Well, I don't always like to use the word risk in a sense. It's taking a chance.
Okay.
Right? Making a move, right? Risk implies danger, I think. And I think sometimes that word is used incorrectly. taking a risk. You know,
Risk
you really
means-
a chance. You take a chance at success.
I think
And,
there's different
you know,
levels of risk. But importantly, when you talk the financial part, it's so important in your 20s to start building good financial habits early. And I don't know if either of us were really advised the way we do with our kids, or our kids even advise us at this stage of the game. They know a lot when it comes to that. They had money management classes in school. We didn't even have that.
Alex set up my Bitcoin wallet.
This is an important message, is to learn to budget, to save, to invest wisely. Those decisions in your 20s can have a significant impact on your financial security.
Because you're going to live a lot longer than you think.
Planning for a good financial future is a good thing. And you know what? We learned it a little later. We did.
Yeah.
But we figured it out, but we didn't necessarily have the guidance with it. But you mentioned earlier about your parents or my parents listening or not listening. If you're listening, mother and daddy, Linda and Larry, Robert's parents, we love you. And we are grateful. We've always been grateful for your love, for your support, for always being there for us. But the thing is that we didn't know what we didn't learn until we didn't know what we didn't learn. And our children bring it to our attention, or other people talk about certain things when it comes to marriage and financials and health. Those aren't kind of the discussions that we've had with our parents, as close as we are.
Right.
Right? Importantly, make practicing gratitude and mindfulness a habit. Reflect every year you're between over and next. Everything, really. I mean, not to make yourself crazy about it, but really think about what you're thankful for and be present in the moment. I promise you, you will be happier and more fulfilled when you do. So then you progress into the 30s. And for us, it was family. It was Wedding Podcast Network. You're wearing the shirt today. Shout out to our amazing third child, Wedding Podcast Network. So proud of that. We discovered a lot about ourselves, about parenthood, and it was a building and growing decade.
And the 30s for us was, I think, super focused on our children because it was their formative years. It wasn't until we were out of elementary school with them that we took, you know, a little kind of step where they kind of force you into that, right? The parent-teacher conferences go away.
Right.
And that back to school
By middle
night
school,
goes
practically.
away.
Yeah.
You know, so up until 5th grade, which is what? You're 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So by the time we were late 30s, early 40s, we were starting to get back to us more. Because the kids were then kind of, not always say self-sufficient,
No.
but they could be over a friend's house and be hanging out, you know, at 12 to 14 to 15. We were more responsible for getting them there and getting them back.
But we learned a lot about being parents. We had babysitters. Younger parents need to prioritize their relationship and their marriage. They need time for themselves, okay?
I mean, I hated paying the money, but I
it was well spent.
It was well spent, but
It
we
was
spent
well spent.
a lot of money
We
on
did.
babysitters.
But I have to tell you, we knew our children were in good care if they weren't
Yeah.
with our parents.
Yeah.
Okay? We had wonderful friends that we met along the way through the mommy groups and through the elementary school years on the blacktop.
Mhm.
And we were very involved parents in our 30s. You really do need a support system because as life does get busier,
You tend to have your
mommy friends and your
right,
daddy friends
exactly.
that you can talk to about that experience. So you have your career
Commiserate.
responsibilities, and we were in our own business, and our family responsibilities, and having a strong support system is more important than ever. We were always grateful to have our family members. That's something that's a constant and a given, although we don't take it for granted. So you got to lean on your friends, your family, your community for support when you need it, and importantly, be there for them in return. But also for your career in your 30s, it's really important in order to continue to up-level your next move in your professional life is really to setting clear goals, seeking out new opportunities for growth and advancement, and continually developing your skills and expertise. And that is something Robert and I have always done. We went to pod camp, we went to social media camp, we went to everything and anything.
We
made
like
a video.
T-shirts.
Oh my
We
God.
like T-shirts.
Robert spoke across the country, elevating the power of video and documenting the times of our lives. And for videographers to actually be recognized and also to be paid what they're worth.
Right.
And you,
Well, hopefully. I mean, that's
still a problem.
That's still a challenge
So-
after all these years.
Which is frustrating, but we're going to continue to give it voice. And the other thing in your 30s that you need to do is plan for the future. Think about your long-term goals and aspirations, whether it's buying a home, starting a family, saving for retirement, and importantly, embrace change. Change is inevitable. So have an open mind and a positive attitude and continually see opportunities for growth and development. So I'm going to move on to our 40s. This is middle age to most. I hope it's not just our middle age. I'd like 50 to be my middle age. You start to reflect on the milestones and you reevaluate and you refocus. So something that's always been important to Robert and I believe that we've mastered it, is work-life balance. Wouldn't you say we have a healthy balance
We do.
in our lives?
We do.
And we make time for our friends, for our family, for our new hobbies, pickleball together. We didn't do that in our 40s. I'm so grateful we're doing it now. And you know what's really important? And this is something that you really should be prioritizing from once you realize how important it is self-love and self-care. You are important. Continue learning and growing. That is going to be a constant message that I'm going to continue to share in between Over and Next and in person and online. Continue to take care of your physical health because it becomes more and more important as we get older, which means regular checkups with your doctors, healthy diet, exercising, and of course, getting enough sleep. Something that matters forever and always will be investing in your relationships. That's one of the most important aspects of our life, and it should be yours. So use your time and energy to nurture your relationships.
It becomes even more important because as the kids get older, you have more time with one another. And if that time doesn't turn into quality time, quite often that's where you have breakdowns in a relationship.
I feel I did the most growth in my 50s. I know there's so much more life ahead, which I'm excited about, but I've reflected a lot and I've had a lot of acceptance about who we are, how we want to be, our legacy. I think we really started to realize that our 50s was our time and we are not going to waste it. We are going to make sure we are intentional and enjoy the time we have individually and collectively.
I agree. A lot of people, they dread turning 50, and we never approached birthdays in that regard. When we reached our 50s, it was a realization that we really have docked a lot of really good time in those 50 plus years. And I think we started to feel that ticking clock, if you will, and that sense of urgency on some of the things that we wanted to accomplish seemed to, the heat was turned up a little bit, because when you're in your 20s, especially, and certainly 30s into 40s, that sense of invincibility is shining there. And it's very hard to think about illness and growing old and retirement. It's like retirement. It's like, what is that? I can't even think about that, right? I remember in my 50s, I went, I think maybe even been a little earlier, right? I went for my first hip consultation, for a hip replacement.
And I'm going tomorrow for mine. Importantly, just prioritize what matters most to you. It should be aligned with your values and your goals and your vision of how you want your life to be. That is totally up to you. I am so excited about hollyandrobert.com because that is our legacy, Robert. We are more present than ever. We are living fully. We are looking forward to what's ahead.
Yeah.
We're going to stay active.
Right.
We're going to embrace every single day, week, month, year. We focus on the positives of getting older, and we keep learning. We are lifelong learners. We've said this so many times.
Yeah. And we're lucky that the people who we know that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, we know so many people in all of those decades that have such a positive outlook.
Yes.
On the rest of their life.
Yes.
However short that may be, right? Is it the next 5 years, the next 10 years, 15 years? We know it's less than 40 years, right? Or 50 years. We've already done that. But it's about what are we doing with the time that we're given that's left?
Keep your mind active.
Well, that's it. Mind active and your body as active as possible, right? I made you run up and down the steps 4 times today.
Yeah, because the printer wouldn't work. So savor the moments. But you know what's really important also? I think this is something you should start in your 20s. And we've been doing it. Give back.
Yeah.
Be a giver in any way you can.
Yes.
Give back to the community.
Right.
Make a positive impact.
Having volunteer on your resume is very important.
And it's also mentoring or donating to a cause that matters to you, right? Just give back in a rewarding way. And especially if you're retired, that would be the number one thing I would highly recommend, is to do something that is serving and helping others.
We all have time to give. We may not all have money to give, endowments. We all can't afford to build libraries and hospitals, but we all have time. I defy anyone to tell me they don't have any time to give to others. We all have time.
Between Over and Next, it really is about all those in-between moments. And I encourage you to speak your truth while you're on your journey, to embrace change, growth, importantly, living your life to the fullest at every stage and age. I invite you to reflect on your life thus far. I'd love for you to share your thoughts and experiences and insights. My top 5 tips for living your happiest, most fulfilled life are: practice gratitude daily. Invest in your relationships over and over and over again. Cultivate those meaningful connections. Set meaningful goals. Prioritize self-care. And embrace failure as growth. You say that all the time, Robert.
I really have to figure out, and I will, over the next few episodes, a much better word for failure, because failure has this negative connotation to it, and it really is a building block towards greatness.
I'm going to conclude with these 5 mantras to live your happiest, most fulfilled life. 1, I am enough, exactly as I am. 2, I choose joy in every moment. 3, I am the architect of my happiness. 4, every experience is an opportunity for growth. And 5, I am grateful for the abundance in my life. Robert, I'm so proud of the moments we've shared, not only on this episode, but in the journey we've shared decade to decade to decade to decade. Thank you.
I'm very fond of you, too. We look forward to continuing to explore the decades as we add them on to our lives. Share this with someone who you care about, and hopefully they will learn and pay it forward. What it comes down to is what we've mentioned time and time again in legacy, and what we leave behind, that footprint. To us, certainly it matters what we're leaving behind, the impact that we're making on others. And I think more people need to be mindful of that, because we do leave a long trail behind us. And I think it's important that we're proud of those moments. You know, I always like to say, at one point, your life will flash before your eyes. Make sure that it's a story worth telling.
And we'll leave a legacy how-to guide, a link to it in the show notes.
We appreciate you being a part of our world
And spending some time with us.
in Between Over and Next.
Thanks for tuning in to Between Over and Next. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found it meaningful and insightful.
If you value it to be worthwhile, please share it with your friends and family.
We would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to write a review for us. Your feedback will help us continue to create content that resonates with you.
And don't forget, in the show notes, you can find all the relevant links mentioned in this episode, from accessing free downloads to visiting our website and more.
If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. Simply send us an email. Our email address is hello@hollyandrobert.com. We're always excited to connect with our listeners.
So until next time, thank you again for joining us on Between Over and Next.
Thank you for listening to Between Over and Next, the podcast that navigates the twists and turns of life with courage, laughter, and a whole lot of inspiration. Tune in every Tuesday to hang out with Holli and Robert on your favorite podcast platform. Visit hollyandrobert.com and follow them on social media to ignite your passion and fuel your dreams.